Hello dear uncles and aunts who are following the channel The Sentiments of Old Age. My mother-in-law's face turned pale. She collapsed into the chair, both hands covering her face. Not a single tear fell, only a heavy, suffocating silence. But this time, I didn't feel the same ache as before. Instead, anger surged inside me. I snapped. How much longer are you going to hide things from me? I forgave you before. I begged you to stop. But she kept on. She pretended to go to the pagoda, lied to my husband, lied to my father, deceived everyone. Did she ever think about the consequences? She didn't answer, only trembled. I stood straight, my voice calm but cold as ice. From today, I won't stay silent anymore. I will tell my father, my husband, and if necessary, I'll have you treated. I can't go on living in a house that's being destroyed like this. That night, when Tuan came home, I told him everything. At first, he didn't believe me. When I showed him the photo I had taken in front of the gambling den, he froze, said nothing, and just sat down, holding his head. Mother, how could you do this? He repeated, voice breaking like a child abandoned. I placed my hand on his shoulder and gently said, I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. But now we have to be serious. We can't go on living under a roof built on lies. Tuan looked up, his eyes red. You're right. This time I won't back down. We can't let my own mother destroy everything. From then on, the air in the house was taut as a violin string. Meals were cold. Everyone spoke only a few words before falling silent. My mother-in-law became like a shadow, withdrawn in her room, only stepping out when necessary. The tenderness she once showed turned into a strained facade that wore everyone out. I was exhausted too. I once thought that if she repented, everything would return to how it was. But I was wrong. Some people sink into bad habits so deeply that remorse is only a temporary act before the next relapse. Tuan's silence grew frightening. He no longer defended his mother but didn't know what to do. He lived as if suffocated by reality, hurt and lost. I knew he loved his mother, but the more he loved her, the more it hurt him. That evening, after a long, weary day at work, I fell asleep to the sound of rain pattering on the eaves. Around 2 in the morning, I woke up. When I went downstairs, Tuan was nowhere to be seen. Passing my mother-in-law's room, I stopped short. The door was ajar, a dim yellow light spilling through the crack. I was about to call out when I froze at the sound of my mother-in-law's choked voice. My child, I beg you, help me this time. If I don't pay them, they won't let us go. They've threatened to splash paint, throw rocks at the house. I promise this is the last time. I stood there, stunned, my hands clenched. Then Tuan's weary voice rose. Mother, I really have no money left. I gave all my salary and bonuses to my wife. I even asked her for a loan, but she wouldn't give it. I was speechless. So that's why he had asked me, because she had told him to. My mother-in-law's voice came again, lower now, colder. Then secretly take a little of her wedding gold. Some of those bracelets and necklaces, she probably doesn't even remember how many there are. Just one piece is enough. My mother-in-law's voice turned cold. Even if you take it for now, no one will know. Later, you can put it back, and that'll be the end of it. I froze, as if slapped straight across the face. Every word she uttered, every breath my husband drew beside her, cut into me like blades. The woman who once promised to treat me like a daughter, the man who once swore to protect me for life, now conspiring together to steal from me, sneaking like common thieves. I couldn't bear it any longer. Pushing the door wide open, I stepped inside. My mother-in-law flinched. Tuan sat stunned, his face drained of color. I stared at them both, my voice sharp with ice. Mother, what kind of mother teaches her son to steal from his wife? She stammered. Why, you were eavesdropping? I let out a bitter, hollow laugh. No, I wasn't eavesdropping. I heard every single word. You're urging my husband to steal my dowry. The keepsakes I brought from my own family, symbols of trust, respect, and devotion to this marriage. Tuan scrambled to his feet, trying to come closer. I stepped back, my voice trembling but firm. What are you going to say? That it's just this once? That you couldn't refuse because your mother was desperate? Do you know each piece of that jewelry is the fruit of my parents' lifetime of hard work? And yet in your mother's eyes, I'm nothing but a walking safe. And you, silent, letting her turn the key. My mother-in-law rushed to explain. I only said it in a moment of panic, I wasn't thinking clearly. I spoke rashly, I didn't mean to. For the first time in my life, I screamed, but you dared to think it. And you sat there listening, without a word of protest. Tuan lowered his head, then muttered under his breath, "You're my wife. Isn't it your duty to help the family in hard times? Mother has always treated you well, never forced you to toil. What's wrong with giving back a little now?" I burst out laughing, then broke into tears. "So because your mother didn't make me wash the dishes, now I owe her my wedding gold as repayment?" Tuan shouted. "How dare you speak so insolently? How dare you talk to my mother like that?" Before I could react, smack, a slap landed across my face. I fell to the floor. My cheek burned, but the true wound lay in my heart, shattered into 1,000 pieces. I rose, my voice chillingly calm. "Thank you. Thanks to you and your mother, I now see I was never truly a daughter-in-law in this house. I was only a talking purse of money." Turning away, I went upstairs to pack. When I stepped out with only a small suitcase, rain poured down in sheets. The wind stung my face, reminding me this wasn't a nightmare, it was reality. I called a taxi and went back to my parents' home. That night, I curled up on the porch, sobbing until no tears remained. The next morning, my father sat beside me. He didn't ask questions, only said softly, "If you want a divorce, we'll respect that. If you want to keep the marriage, we'll stand by you." I clung to him, crying like a child. Returning to the house of my childhood after nearly a year of marriage, I felt both familiar and estranged. Familiar with the kitchen corners, the porch, the whisper of the wind. Estranged, because my heart was now riddled with cracks, no longer whole. My mother didn't say much. She simply handed me a set of pajamas scented with sunshine. Quietly, she tended to every meal, every cup of tea. At times, she stroked my hair and murmured, "Things that are broken can sometimes be mended. But if mending still hurts, then letting go is also a way of loving yourself." Her words brought tears to my eyes. I took a week off work, shutting myself away from my phone and the internet. Each morning, I stood on the balcony, watching the little road with people passing by, while I drifted like a lost fragment, unsure whether to stop or keep floating on. On the 5th day, I turned on my phone. Messages from Tuan flooded in, apologies, pleas, promises, excuses. That afternoon, he came to the gate. My mother went out to meet him, firm in her stance. "She's not ready. When she wants to see you, she'll call." I sat in my room, hearing every word, but never came out. Tuan waited nearly an hour before leaving. That night, I opened my notebook and scribbled a few crooked lines. "I've endured enough. I once loved, once trusted, once hoped. But there are limits one cannot cross. Some kinds of trust, once broken, can never be restored." On the 7th day, I went to the market with my mother. Familiar faces were surprised to see me. "Oh, Non, you're back for a visit? Haven't seen you in so long." I only smiled and answered, "Yes, I'm just here for a short break." While choosing vegetables and fish, my mother asked quietly, "So what will you do? You can't stay here forever. Sooner or later, the matter of your marriage has to be settled." I silently nodded. That night, I sat with my parents. "I'll go back to my husband's house, but not as the same daughter-in-law I used to be. I'll return to speak clearly with Tuan. If he still puts his mother above his wife, still treats me as an endless bank, I'll file for divorce." My mother stayed silent, while my father nodded. "Whatever you decide is fine, as long as you can live in peace and without sorrow." Before going to bed, I stood for a long time in front of the mirror. My face was gaunt, dark circles beneath my sleepless eyes. But in that reflection, I could still see a spark of determination. I realized I hadn't been defeated. My self-respect remained. Most importantly, I had found the strength to walk away when insulted. I clenched my fists and told myself, whatever happens tomorrow, I'll keep moving forward, as a woman who will never again let herself be trampled. The next afternoon, I returned to my husband's house. The rain had just stopped, the ground still damp, my heart as unsettled and heavy as the air. When the taxi pulled up at the gate, I stood there for a few seconds. This house that once felt like a home now looked foreign, as if it belonged to strangers. Taking a deep breath, I steeled myself to be strong one more time. Tuan opened the door. He was thin, his hair unkempt, eyes hollow from sleepless nights. When he saw me, he froze, then backed away, avoiding my gaze. I dragged my suitcase inside without a word. The house was so quiet it felt eerie. My father-in-law, who had been reading the paper, set it aside when he noticed me, worry flickering in his eyes. "You're back?" I gave a small nod. Yes, I'm back to talk things through. He said nothing more, only gestured for me to sit. Tuan leaned against a column, not daring to look at me directly. My mother-in-law avoided me altogether. Since my arrival, she hadn't once shown her face. I drew in a breath and spoke slowly. I didn't come back to restore things as they were. I came back to speak one last time. My father-in-law nodded quietly, listening. I turned to Tuan. Do you want to continue this marriage? He nodded faintly, his voice hoarse. I do. I know I was wrong. I regret it. I looked straight at him, my voice firm. Then from now on, you will not give your mother a single cent without my consent. Every expense must be transparent. The wedding gold, the jewelry, and all our savings will be in my name, kept in the bank. I will not tolerate your mother whispering to you to steal from me ever again. Tuan blushed, lowering his head. I agree. I turned to my father-in-law. I want you to witness this. Words alone mean nothing. That's why we're here in the first place. He met my eyes, then nodded. I'll take responsibility as the elder of this family. I was wrong to let things drag on. I won't let you shoulder it anymore. I stood tall, my voice unwavering. I'll stay here for now. But if this happens again, I will divorce. No warnings, no second chances. My father-in-law nodded. Tuan remained silent. My mother-in-law never appeared. That night, I tidied the separate room, locked the cabinet, and sent all my jewelry and documents back to my parents' house. I didn't want to gamble on trust anymore. I needed to be sure that even if the marriage collapsed, I would still keep what was mine. Tuan tried to talk, but I cut him off. I'm tired. I need time. He nodded and turned away, his eyes full of sorrow, but I no longer softened. In the days that followed, the air in the house grew stifling. I continued cooking and cleaning, but only in silence. No one spoke a word more than necessary. My mother-in-law lived like a prisoner in her own room, avoiding my eyes. Perhaps she understood that I was no longer the docile daughter-in-law she could manipulate. Tuan's behavior changed noticeably. Punctual at work, home early, no socializing. But he was like an empty shell, maybe from shame, maybe from genuine fear of losing me. A week later, my mother-in-law unexpectedly knocked on my door. Non, I'm sorry. I sat at my desk without turning around. I know I was wrong, she continued. I hurt you. I never hated you. I was just dragged into it all. I won't touch gambling again. I finally turned, meeting her eyes. They were swollen from tears, her frame frail and shrunken. Mother, I don't need promises. I need action. If you truly want to change, show me day by day. Don't say another word. I'm exhausted from hearing promises. She nodded, stepping back, the door closing in silence. I knew the road ahead would be long. Forgiveness doesn't come easily, and forgetting is harder still. But I had found the courage to come back and face everything head-on, to set clear boundaries, to take control of my own life. For me, that was already a turning point. In the middle of those murky days, all I wished was that if we could no longer love each other sincerely, at least we could treat each other with basic decency. Since the day I laid down my conditions, Tuan began to change. He lived quietly, avoided drinking, avoided gatherings, came home from work on time, and even helped me cook and clean. Things he had never touched before he now did with deliberate care, as though the slightest slip would make him lose me forever. I could see his efforts, but my heart could not yet settle. That slap, though it happened only once, had carved a deep wound in my trust, leaving a scar that hadn't healed. One evening, while I was folding clothes, Tuan brought in a cup of ginger tea. He set it down and sat next to me, silent for a long time before speaking. I'm sorry. I didn't respond. He went on, his voice hoarse. I know an apology can't erase what you went through. But every day since then, living with you, I've only wanted to start over. I looked up, my voice calm. Starting over is easy. Erasing everything isn't. He bowed his head. I'm not asking you to forget. I'm only asking for another chance to make things right. I looked straight at him. If it were the other way around, if I were the one caught doing something that terrible, would you be calm enough to sit here and apologize to me like I am now? He fell silent. My eyes stung. I don't need a perfect husband. I only need you to keep the respect you had for me at the beginning. Once that's gone, everything becomes meaningless. Tuan reached for my hand and squeezed it gently. I know. I'll do whatever it takes to show you. I'm not like my mother. And indeed, after that, he kept his word. For more than 2 weeks, he lived like a model husband. Every evening we read books or watched movies together. He never brought up the past, never defended his mother like before. Once, he even said directly to her, "Mother, don't use any excuse to touch my wife's money again. If you want to buy something, tell me, I'll handle it. But don't ask her for money." My mother-in-law's face went pale, but she silently withdrew to her room. Seeing Tuan then, a strange feeling rose in me, not quite love again, just a faint relief that he had learned to stand on the right side. But the calm didn't last. One Saturday afternoon, just as I came home, my mother-in-law entered my room holding a paper bag. "Non, I need to talk to you." I set my handbag down. "Yes, mother?" She sat on the edge of the bed, her voice soft. "I know you're still angry. I don't blame you. I was wrong, I admitted. But today I want to ask you for something." I grew cautious. "Yes? Your aunt, my younger sister, has uterine cancer. She needs surgery but has no money. You know I'm broke. I know you have savings. I'm asking you just this once, 30 million. I swear I'll pay it back." I stood frozen. After everything, she was still asking me for money. "Mother, do you really think I still believe you? This time it's true. If you don't believe me, call your aunt. Here's her number." I cut her off. "No need. I'm not giving another cent. Even if someone is truly sick, you're no longer someone I can trust with money." For a moment, her eyes flashed with anger, then dimmed. She clicked her tongue. "I understand. You see me as an outsider now. But one day you'll be a mother too. Then you'll understand there are times you can't just sit and watch your loved ones suffer." My voice went cold. "And one day you'll understand that some women have to be decisive. If not, they'll be trampled without mercy." My mother-in-law stood up and quietly closed the door. I collapsed onto the edge of the bed, my heart tightening. I wasn't being selfish. If what she said was true, if my aunt really needed surgery, I wouldn't hesitate. But I couldn't hand over money to someone who had deceived me too many times. I opened my phone and looked back at my expense log, over $500 million gone into blind trust. I couldn't make the same mistake again. That night, Tuan learned of the situation. He stayed silent for a while, then said, "I'll give mother the money. You don't have to be involved." I looked at him, a sense of unease creeping in. "I'm not forbidding you. But I'll remind you again, if our money is used for your mother again, I'll leave immediately. I won't wait another day." Tuan nodded. Tuan's voice tightened, low but firm. He knew, and he would not let me down again. Ever since my mother-in-law used the excuse of her younger sister's illness to squeeze money out of us, a fire had been smoldering inside me. I no longer knew what was true and what was false. My trust had already been shattered long ago. Promises, tears, pitiful sighs. I had lived through them all, suffered because of them all. I no longer wanted to be led by pity. From that day, I watched her more closely, every action, every expression. I refused to be fooled by her weary looks or her words, "I'm fine, I can manage." Because once a person has grown used to hiding and fabricating stories, every word they say must be verified. One morning, I took a day off work, pretending to be unwell in my room. Tuan had left early. Around 10, I heard her door creak open, soft footsteps sneaking downstairs, then the front door closing. I waited a few minutes, then quietly changed clothes and followed. She walked through several streets, then slipped into a small cafe down an alley. From the outside it looked ordinary, but I knew it was a place she used to gather for card games. Standing across the road, I peered through the misty glass. My mother-in-law sat in a corner, cards in hand, her face tense, nothing like the remorseful look she had shown me before. I quietly snapped a few photos and left. This time, I didn't feel the same pain as before. I only pitied myself for having tried so hard, only to receive nothing in return. That evening, when she returned, I was already waiting in the living room. She flinched at the sight of me, but quickly regained her composure. "Oh, you're still up?" I nodded. "Yes, I was waiting for you. Where did you go today?" She answered smoothly, without hesitation. "I went to the temple to make an offering. The nun asked for a favor, so I came home late." I curled my lips in a faint smile, holding up my phone. "This temple, mother?" Seeing the photos, she collapsed into a chair, her face drained of color. You followed me?" I stayed calm. "No. I just needed to know if you're still worthy of me calling you mother." She clutched her chest, gasping, "I know I was wrong. I'm addicted. I can't stop." I shook my head. "It's not that you can't stop. It's that you don't want to. You just want others to pay the price for you." My husband, me, even Dad have all covered for you. Her tears fell, but this time I felt no pity. Only emptiness. I've forgiven too many times. This is the end. She trembled, staring at me. What are you going to do? If you relapse again, I'll tell Dad everything and discuss it with my husband. And I'll leave this house. That's not a threat, I will. When Tuan came home, I showed him the photos. He froze, whispering only, I'm sorry. I really thought this time she had changed. I smiled faintly, bitterly. People only change when they're forced to the edge. If you don't act, I'll protect myself. I've had enough. Tuan buried his head in his hands, his voice hoarse. Give me 1 week. I'll tell Dad myself, so you don't have to be the one to expose her. Let me handle it, just once more. I nodded, but inside I was already preparing for every outcome, even leaving. This time, not because I was driven out, not because I was insulted, but because I wanted to preserve my self-respect. In the days that followed, Tuan grew quieter, rarely smiling or speaking. I knew he was torn, between his mother, who gave him life, and his wife, who had endured too much pain because of his weakness. I didn't pressure him. I simply waited, exactly 1 week, as promised. Then Sunday arrived. The sky was gray, the wind howled as if to forewarn us. At lunch, the air was thick and heavy. My father-in-law sat at the head of the table, calmly pouring dipping sauce, unaware that within minutes he would hear something that would shatter him. Tuan placed a piece of fish into his father's bowl, then set his chopsticks down, taking a deep breath. Dad, I have something to say. He looked up. Go ahead. Tuan glanced at me, then turned to his mother. This is about Mom. Please, Dad, just listen to me first. My mother-in-law froze, the ladle trembling in her hand. Tuan pulled out the stack of photos, the ones I had taken at the card den. He spoke slowly. Mom still hasn't given up gambling. She kept lying, even tried to borrow money from my wife again. My father-in-law's eyes bulged as he stared at each photo, his face growing paler with every second.